It is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. This is the first mailbag of the off season. I think it's official to say.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Our last mailbag was right before game 5,
Yes. The morning of.
the morning of the Dodgers winning the World Series. Look at us doing the math and figuring this out,
Oh, we're
remembering
so
what day
good.
of the week we're on and stuff like that. Hello
hmm
and welcome to the Walk Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co host in the biz, Adam Mack. And we've got a pile of questions and comments to get to from you over the last week. We always comb through the interaction. You were very vocal about a few things this time around. So that's how we'll start the mailbag, and then we'll go through everyone else's stuff. Obviously, you can reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. If you are a member of the Patreon, number one, a big thank you to you. If you are throwing us that extra $4 a month, it comes with bonus content, MLB Mondays every single Monday. You get instant access to all of our interviews. And as if that's not enough, here on Mailbag, you get the Patreon bump. So automatically get your question and comment into the mailbag. We have quite a few Patreon folks to get to today, and we'll dive in.
Hold on. You're forgetting, in my opinion, the best value add for Patreon as well is the pre-show ramble.
Oh, yes, the pre show ramble, which we really came through.
15 to 30 minutes every show of us talk. Today it was TV show intros we got
Mhm,
caught up on. Little Stranger
mhm.
Things stuff.
Yeah, recap.
Poppies. We talked poppies.
We
It was
did
good. It
talk poppies. It was
was good.
a a real roller coaster ride of a preamble. And if you're on Patreon, well, I'm sure you're just already right into this episode. So, yeah, YouTube. Also, just a heads up, we try and get to as many of your comments as well. Appreciate all of you who follow along on YouTube. You can drop those in the comment section. And if you're listening on audio, I know that's how a lot of folks reach out on Twitter, is that there isn't really a comment section in the audio side. So feel free to just reach out to us and we'll do what we can here. Okay, like I stated off the top, there was one particular thing that we talked about last episode that got us. I honestly, Adam, it might be the most messages we've had over anything ever in the history of the podcast. And
So
it's
dumb.
really funny. It's not even a Blue Jays
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
specific thing. So, um, the Mookie Betts New York Yankees fan, what would you
Interference.
call it? Fiasco? Is that the right word?
Sure. Rob Gronkowski's best friend from
You'll
high
let us go
school
with Fiasco? Yeah.
attacked mercilessly Mookie
Yes.
Betts. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a hit job. I think is the safest way to put it. There was an
So
assassination attempt on Mookie Betts.
you took a stance that, and
I
it's funny
defended the
because
fans.
I will say this, Adam. I really came out looking like the good guy until I didn't on this.
Okay, all right.
I, for one, was like, fuck those New York Yankees fans. I don't like them. I think the whole thing was shit. You took another stance. Now, it's funny because we talked about this yesterday on MLB Mondays a little bit, where you were like, listen, once I heard these guys on podcasts and stuff, obviously I changed my thought. You were very quick to give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You're a human first, right?
Oh, I've seen like home run balls like where it's a scramble and fans are wrestling with each other. It's Shohei's 50th. This is literally a $4 million souvenir that you're holding on to, right? Like there's wrestling going on, and I thought heat of the moment, the excitement. It's not a $4 million foul ball, but it is a World Series souvenir.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't know it was a player's glove, right? Like people bring their mitts to the game. I thought that's realistic that in a split second you go, oh, there's a glove. Someone's got my souvenir. It's mine. I want it. I defended them. Then I watched their fucking circus show press tour that they did. And it became really
Yeah,
tough to do.
they are kind of pieces of shit.
Yeah,
It is what it is. I called that right from the beginning. So
you did.
you got pushback on that. Um, and it ranged from people just laughing, being like, "Oh man, is Adam ever out to lunch?" Normally,
Worst
I
take
agree with
Adam's
him.
ever had. Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and then it all the way from that end of the spectrum all the way to Adam is a horrible human being. I don't know how he could have viewed this. And I mean, I personally, buddy, I fall somewhere in the middle. I don't think you're all that great. I don't think you're all that bad. You are just like you're you.
Thanks, thanks.
Now,
I think people who really disliked my take though are probably also people who wouldn't wrestle a small child in the crowd for a ball.
yes, yes.
So they're like, well, why would you do that anyways? Whether you thought it was Mookie Betts or a 9-year-old kid, why would you wrestle the
Which
ball out
is a
of their
good
glove?
question.
In hindsight, all right, yeah, maybe.
Now,
Still,
I could have just come out looking like the good guy here, but then
okay.
I had to add right at the end of this talk, I asked, what was your initial reaction to it? And then I stated that my initial reaction was that I burst out laughing to this, which also was not well received by a few people that I got
You
comments from.
dirtbag.
So I will say this. Number one, yeah, guys, what the fuck do we know? We're gonna have bad takes from time to time. It's just
Well,
the thing with having takes sometimes.
look, I would
I will
also
also say, I'll finish my thought here and I'll throw it to
please.
you, Adam.
Sorry. Yes.
I will also say that maybe I just shouldn't share what makes me laugh sometimes because my reaction to something in the moment is before I have a time to think about the ramifications of what just went down. You know, like obviously 30 seconds to 60 seconds in, I was right there with everyone else. Mookie could have been injured. The guy was an idiot. Like, what was that other guy doing grabbing his wrist out of nowhere? Why did this take place? Why did it take so long for them to get kicked out? Like, I was right there with everybody else. But
Sure.
when it first happened, the guy was like so furiously trying to get into the glove and he couldn't. Like Mookie with one hand was stopping this man. And then you had the perfect analogy of like when your dad would take a piece of Halloween candy when you're a kid and you're like, he's like,
Mhm.
you get all this candy if you can just get in my hand. And it's just like, "Arr!" And like his big dumb ears. Again, another thing that I got shit for was making fun of the guy's appearance. I got a I again, apologies. Sometimes when you watch the walk off, you just have to deal with the fact that these couple of bozos are gonna be wrong from time to time.
We're not Arden and Ben, all right? You want
We're
a
not Arden and
polished,
Ben.
politically correct take. You know, you're not watching us, you're not watching Gate 14. Um, I would say anybody who was annoyed at you for like having your initial reaction of like laughter is lying. They're lying to themselves.
Hmm.
Like 1% of people is probably not like interested in that play as a fan watching on TV. I think 1% of people is immediately horrified is their first reaction. I think
Mhm.
most people are probably where you are, Scott, of like, oh, what the fuck's happening here? Ah,
That's
fucking
literally like
idiot.
I was just like, what is this?
Right.
You don't see this every day.
You you remember, I don't know when this happened. 2004. This is 20, holy shit, 20 years ago. This is a hockey reference. When Todd Bertuzzi cold cocked Steve Moore,
Mm-hmm.
I would have, I mean, I was also a child at that point. I would have been like 15. But my initial reaction was like, oh yeah, like fucking let's go get revenge. I don't even
Yeah.
remember what the thing was, if he hit Naslund or what happened, and there was revenge on Steve Moore from Todd Bertuzzi. But like, yeah, my initial reaction was like, fucking, here we go. I mean, sure, once I see him laying on the ice for 10 minutes
Of
motionless and
course.
career over, of course, I'm like, oh, that was awful. But like in the moment, you're riled up and it was like, oh, this is wild. And it was not a good scene. But I think that's not, that doesn't make you a bad person to have a shocked excitement to extraordinary circumstances. When something that is like once in 50 years kind of event happens of an interaction, you go, whoa, you don't immediately start praying. Like, you're like, oh,
And
that was fucking
honestly,
cool.
Adam,
I
I
hope
will say
everyone's
too,
okay is your second thought. But first thought is, oh, that was cool. That was a huge fireball. Hope everyone's okay. Maybe
I've
that's just
never
me.
I've never been, and I'm not just saying this, like I've never been the smartest guy in a room. It's never been my big
Okay.
um, you know, one up on folks has been my
Right.
intelligence. I don't know if anyone has seen Gattaca, but sometimes I feel like I'm Gattacaing my way through life, right? Like I'm maybe just a little bit under most people's intelligence, but if you give me enough time, I can
You'll
get
come
there,
around.
right? And
You'll
so in a
catch up.
moment like that, you just got to give me a little time for my brain to catch up on some of everyone else's more intellectual thoughts, right? And then I get there. I will get there. You just got to give me some time and some work. So there.
So now
Way to
we can
shoehorn
all
a
agree.
Gattaca reference in there, right? Very, very rarely
Well
done.
played.
Rarely
Well
seen.
played. So yeah, I do not like those fans in particular because now we've heard from the horse's mouth what their
That they
intentions
are, in
were, and I
fact,
and I
pieces of
disagree
shit.
with it.
Yes.
So yeah, what do you do?
Last thing on this before we move on and get right into mailbag. I know there were numerous comments about you comparing it to the Bartman catch, which I right away said I disagree with. We rarely disagree, Adam, but this was one where we actually kind of both dug our heels in here. And what's hilarious is we both got pretty good pretty good whiplash pushback,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to
Mm-hmm.
put it from it. But yeah, after it's funny because I did go back and watch it a bunch and then I re-pulled up Bartman. It is substantially different from
Sure.
Bartman now.
Okay.
Sure. There we go. Okay. Now it's all
Okay.
out there, folks. Hopefully,
Yeah.
you're feeling better about watching the walk off right now. There you go. Okay, let's get into it. From Twitter. This one was from Megan, and she DM'd us. She says, "Hey guys, happy start of the off season. What the hell went on with Gerrit Cole? Question mark. He is still a Yankee on the same contract he opted out of? Question mark." Which I love this question because that was my reaction yesterday night too, as this all kind of went down, and that's exactly what took place. Gerrit Cole opted out of his contract, which means that he would become a free agent
Uh-huh.
unless the Yankees picked up
His fifth year
another
option.
year, his final option year for $36 million, pushing his salary from 144 over 4 years to 180 over 5. The New York Yankees said, "Nah, we're not doing that.
We're good.
We're good." Gerrit Cole said, "What?"
You guys thought I
Then,
was serious? Oh, I
then
was I was just playing, guys.
what? You're calling this bluff? What?
Yeah.
And what's wild is he just walked it back. He was like, "You know what? Let's pretend like this never happened." And here we are, Gerrit Cole right back with the Yankees, still $144 million owing.
What do you
Yankee
think
for
of
the
it?
next 4 years. What was your question? Sorry, buddy.
What do you think of it? This whole how this all went down, how it worked out.
I mean, the whole thing's a little weird. I will say the Yankees are not a better team without Gerrit Cole on it. Makes
Mm-hmm.
all the sense in the world that they didn't want him to go to free agency. Doesn't make a ton of sense. Gerrit Cole being like, I just wonder if maybe he opted out thinking that he'd force their hand.
Hmm. And they
And
just
then when
figured there isn't more money out there for you. Literally, it was just we're calling your bluff there,
we're
Mr.
calling your
Boris.
bluff, and Scott Boras was like, you know what?
Oh shit.
I've sniffed around. There isn't more money out there. They did a good job here.
Hmm.
Let's walk this back.
I the only thing I don't like about it is I don't think you should be able to say just kidding if you
Yeah.
opt out. Like if you opt out, you should be opted out. Like it should be like, nope, too bad. You're a free agent now. If you want to come back, we'll sign you for less money than the 4 years you just walked away from. You know, shit. I don't know. It's
I do wonder if maybe there was like some sort of sit down with the front office and Cashman, and they were like, listen, we need you. You're an integral part of this team. However, we're still on a budget. If we're going to bring in Juan Soto and bolster this rotation, and I don't know, like,
yeah, I don't
do
know.
you
In the
think there's any
world of
sort of
like,
world where Gerrit
eh,
Cole took one for the team here, or is this just
no,
there
I've
just
I've
wasn't
seen
anything
that
for
kind
him?
of chatter online and I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I don't buy that there was a conversation of like, hey, like we need that extra 36 to give to Juan. You do want Juan back, don't you? And he was like, okay, fine. I don't think he is a I'm not giving him credit for that. I just I think in the world of like you shouldn't be tampering and whatever, these conversations should just be had ahead of time. Like you should know, hey, we're we're going to free agency, or no, we're not, and we're coming back. And okay, so here's a great example of I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, right? But qualifying offers, right?
Mhm.
If if the Yankees give Glaber Torres a qualifying offer, and then he goes, okay, sounds good. I'm in. And then they go, oh shit, we didn't think you were going to accept it. We were just kidding. We just wanted that in case you walked away. We wanted to get something when you signed with someone else. But we didn't actually, oh shit, we didn't want that. So we're rescinding the quality. Like, you can't do that.
It is weird to hear the just kidding excuse used in a $1 billion industry, right? Like it's not every day that you have a
Right.
scenario where they're like, you know what? Gotcha. I'll actually take what was given to me.
Yeah. Like I guess it's just I mean, I would probably say if the Yankees, like, if it wasn't Gerrit Cole, or if Gerrit Cole wasn't as good, or the Yankees didn't feel like they need him still, or however, right? Maybe they would have had the opportunity still to be like, no, too bad, so sad. Like you opted out, go fuck yourself,
Mhm.
right? But they were probably like thrilled to still keep him for 4 years at 144, right? Like maybe that's where they're like, okay, fine, like deal. Let's all move ahead then. Like, do you think if the situation was different, if he had have opted out and the Yankees were relieved, like, okay, sweet, like we're happy to save that money and go give money to Corbin Burns instead. Like we wanted to go in a different direction. We're glad you opted out. And then he goes, oh shit, I thought you were going to pick up my 5th year option. Never mind, just kidding. Do you think the Yankees could have been like, yeah, no, you're gone, dude. Like it's over. Because
Yes.
now that I think about it, I feel like that's
I do think there
probably
was mutual interest
both
in
parties
yes.
were happy to have him back at 4. So yeah, fair enough, I guess. But it yeah, I don't know. I don't just
It
that
was
aspect of
weird.
the
And the
that I
qualifying
rubs me the wrong
offer
way.
example is a really good one, as if the shoe is on the other foot, it would be completely unacceptable.
Right, right. That's where I'm like, yeah, it's not really fair, but yeah, what
Ground
do you
crew.
do?
Grounds crew, drop your comments below. What do you think about Gerrit Cole pulling the old just kidding? I'm fine where I am after not getting the extra $36 million and the 5th year tagged on to that 4 year deal. Would love to hear what you folks think. We will
Well, he
move
did it
on.
in Gerrit Cole did it in game 5, the just kidding, when it
Yep.
was a hit to Rizzo, and he was like, I got first. Just
Just
kidding.
kidding.
You better get there. I ain't running there. Yeah. Gerrit Cole sucks. Uh,
I still will always think of Garth and him calling Gerrit Cole a thumb and then putting a smiley face and two eyes on his thumb and being like, Gerrit Cole. I just think of that. He's just got such a thumb face, you know?
lovely. Lovely.
Sticking with Twitter, Jason DM'd us. He said, Hey guys, really love the show. I listen to dozens of Jay's podcasts, and you two are one of my favorites. Well, thank you, Jason. Mailbag question. I will say that your views on this current young crop of players seems far lower than most. What is it about guys like Will Wagner, Spencer Horwitz, Joey Loperfido, etc., that you don't like? Um, so this is a good question, but I
Mm-hmm.
will say it's framed probably a little incorrectly because it's not that I dislike these guys. Actually I quite liked the young core that we saw at the end of the year last year, outside of all the losing and the lack of offense. But they were
Mm-hmm.
fun. And I do see some real potential in some of these guys. Will Wagner and Spencer Horwitz, especially. I think that these are guys that are going to continue to produce, right? Obviously, they'll have their ups and downs. The easy answer here, and I'll throw to Adam in a second, service time. They just haven't done it much. You know, like the sample size is so small on all these guys to really rely on the numbers that we saw to Will Wagner, to rely on the numbers we saw to Spencer Horwitz. And I'm not saying it's not doable. I just don't think that if you're looking to improve this team long term, that you can bring 75% of these guys back. I think Adam and I have talked about this a few times where what, two guys of the glut of dudes, like when we're talking Loperfido, Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, Davis Schneider, Will Wagner, Spencer Horwitz, right? Like Joey
Mm-hmm.
Loperfido. Anything to add here, Adam?
Like, yeah, like part of it, I think for me comes down to like the pedigree and the like I know that we also have like Jose Batista's happen and lots of superstars are late round draft picks that pan out and whatever. Like I get that player development is part of it, but that's just where like my excitement wanes is like these aren't guys we've had our eye on since they were 14 and have been like, oh, this guy, once he gets here, is going to change the franchise. Like, it's not like Bo Bichette, second round draft pick, right? Like, Vlad, like these kids that were just tearing it up since A ball, right? Like, these are guys that have just like grinded it and kind of found it and like good for them. They're putting it together. But I mean, we saw what happened with David Schneider, right? Like, it's just, you can put it together for a bit, but that doesn't, more often than not, the 28th round draft pick not
Yeah.
going to the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
right? So,
More often than
uh,
not, the 28th round draft pick, not even an everyday major league player.
right. So Loperfido, 7th round. Will Wagner, 18th round. Spencer Horwitz, 24th round. Addison Barger, 6th round. Davis Schneider, 28th round.
Hmm.
For me, that's just where I'm kind of like, I don't know if they turn it into Santiago Espinal, amazing, cool. Like you definitely need those guys. They
Yeah.
contribute, right? Like you have injuries, you have a need for those guys in AAA to fill in when someone breaks a knuckle on a hit by pitch. But like those are not. I know there's a question coming up about um, giving Juan Soto the money and then not having any money left for anybody else, right? Um, and the idea that like you need to build a team of 4 or 5 superstars, right? And we're talking about building a team of 4 or 5 28th rounders,
Yeah.
right? Like that for me, that's the difference, right? It's like, again, I don't know where Mookie Betts was drafted or where, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Why can't I think of the World Series MVP? I'm brain fog
Oh,
right now.
Freddie.
Freddie, right?
Yeah.
I think he was a later round draft pick too, right? Um,
Oh, I thought he
now
was
I
a
actually
first.
have to look that up.
Yeah. Here, you look up Freddie. I'll look up Mookie, but I think
All
Mookie was
right.
a first rounder too.
I think you're right about. Oh, Freddie was a second round pick.
Okay, and fifth round for Mookie.
Okay, so there you go.
And I will
Um,
say also, I am high on Spencer Horowitz. I do like the kid. I like Will Wagner as well. And if you're going to have one of those guys on the team, I'm all right with it. And I know that this has been something we've talked about a little bit in the past as well, but they do profile as very similar players. And we watched what redundancy did to this team last year in having IKF and Ernie Clement, in having some of these guys who are all second basemen. And it's really tough to massage a lineup with the best offensive group when all of these pieces are very, very similar. So, Will Wagner, Spencer Horowitz, both pretty much only play second base. Spencer also plays first, but I mean, is there even a hole at first base? Like, if anything, we could watch the Jays do something really wild and bring in another first baseman and see Vladdy taking more reps at third base. I think that's more likely than seeing both
mhm,
Will Wagner and Spencer Horowitz on this team. Both
mhm.
these guys are lefty bats. Both these guys are 26 years old. I think Spence is coming up on 28 now, but they're both in that same age range.
I think that's
They
another
both don't
thing.
hit for power. They're both kind
I,
of average, like batting
I,
average on base
I,
guys.
I think that's another reason for me. I mean, like we talked about late round draft picks, kind of dampen my excitement for a guy that's being productive. We talked about it on MLB Mondays yesterday with that Padres prospect who was 4 years older than he claimed to be, right? And the significant advantage of being a 19-year-old playing against 15-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
and how whatever the velocity on your pitch is and the distance on your swing is, if we think you're doing those numbers as a 15-year-old, that's fucking wild. That's something to be excited about. If you're putting up those numbers as a 19-year-old, it's a lot less
Exciting.
exciting. And that's kind of part of the process here with these kids is they're older than Vlad and Bo, some of them. Like they're 26 playing in like they're not putting up a 350 batting average as a 21-year-old in AAA, right? They're doing it as a 26-year-old, as a 25-year-old. Like it is less impressive,
Yeah.
right? When Aurelvis Martinez is fucking mashing and setting like the AA home run record, yeah, that
At
gets my
20 years
attention.
old. Yeah.
Right. When he's a 20-year-old playing in a league that is mostly 22-year-olds and he's leading the league in home runs, that gets you on the radar, right? Like, okay, we could talk PEDs, that's a whole nother topic, but it doesn't disprove the point, right? Of like that's why it stands out. But when you do that as a guy who, is a full
Technically in
age
your
group
prime.
older.
Yeah.
Right. It is just less impressive. So that like starts to be like, okay, yeah, that's why Davis Schneider comes up and is now like a below 200 career batting average guy. Right. Like, and they can come up and look good when the scouting reports on them are not as thorough as they inevitably will be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just where my lack of enthusiasm for these guys comes from. It's not that I dislike them. Like
Yeah.
obviously, like as a guy, like them. Um, but that's where I'm like, yeah, I don't, I just I, the thought of all all of these guys being like, oh, this is our new crop of players. It's like, I want to go hang myself. So
I mean,
there's another question coming up about like the fan base losing interest in the Blue Jays 7 or 8 years after the Joe Carter home run. And I'm excited to talk about that one. And that's kind of where I'm like worried about us being at is like, we can't be too lackadaisical here with assuming that these current Blue Jays fans are going to just stick around.
yeah, couldn't agree more.
So,
We'll get into it.
okay.
Moving on to the last Twitter question. Again, at Walk Off Podcast on Twitter. If you wish to send us a DM, Colleen reached out. Walk off. When does
Time out. Before we get to Colleen's, just because I have this thought chewing at my brain right now.
Yeah.
The fans that we do have right now are riding the wave of Bo and Vladdy coming after the Josh Donaldson, Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Batista era, right? Like
Yeah.
those guys kind of came out of nowhere, brought a lot of attention and enthusiasm to the Blue Jays that frankly I hadn't seen
Yeah.
in my
Since the
entire
90s.
life.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was weird. I grew up a ball player, a ball fan. It was my sport of choice. It was weird to be able to talk Blue Jays with my coworkers for the first time in my life during that run, right?
Yeah.
Like we were not a casual sports fans team until then. And once that run ended, those fans stuck around through the ugly years of Kevin Pillar and what's that handsome guy that went to Colorado's name? This is gonna bug me.
The handsome guy that went to Colorado.
Played outfield for
Oh,
us.
Randall Grishik.
Randall
Wow.
Grishik, thank you.
I can't believe that took me so long to get that. Oh, man.
All the ladies in chat and all the gay dudes in chat are like, "Wow, how could you forget Randall with those eyes?" Anyways, they stuck through those years of like not being a good team. I think largely in part to the fact that like we were promised that like no, we have like two potential Hall of Famers coming. Like we got like some, their dads were Hall of Fame. There was real like holy shit. We got the next crop is gonna be fucking sick. Like don't go anywhere. Don't change the channel. But now we're kind of at the end of that wave, and yeah,
There's
the
not a
Spencer
lot of excitement in the
Horwitz
future.
and the
Yeah.
Addison Bargers, like it's just not the same promise of like, oh, don't worry, if we lose Bo, we got Joey Loperfido coming. Like, we're gonna Arjun Namala is the next guy. Like, it's just there's not there. So we are like on the. It's tough, man. It's tough.
It
So
is.
yeah, sorry, I just had to get that last thought out there that like there is a difference in the enthusiasm we had 7, 8 years ago for Bo and Vlad and what was coming up, and even like Nate Pearson to an extent, even though that didn't work out. But like the hype was there. It was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, yeah, we're gonna be set once these kids make it. And
There's a lot
I
of
don't think there's a single
animosity right now,
prospect in our
too.
team that we can say that for. So
There's a lot of animosity as well towards this
yeah,
front office and just a
big
lack
time.
of trust and belief in general.
Yep,
So,
it's true.
yeah, this really is a do or die offseason, in my opinion. I mean, I was a fan during the 2000s. You know,
Hmm.
that 2000 to 2000 like 12 were dark
Hmm.
days. No hope. Constant fourth and fifth place division finishes. And the fan base whittled down to the hardcores only.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there is danger of that happening again if they can't get their shit together, for lack of a better way of putting it. All right, back to Colleen. She goes, walk off. When does free agency start? What dream free agent would you love to see land with the Jays? And more importantly than that, what big free agent do you think realistically could land with the Blue Jays? Well, I mean, if we're just dreaming, we probably have the same answer, right? Or are you Juan Soto? Like if we're just
Sure.
dreaming.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, that's the dream answer for sure.
Now, realistically, and Colleen, thanks for reaching out. This was a fun exercise because I did spend the morning going over the free agent class and being
Hmm.
like, what big, and that was one thing she had in this question, what
Hmm.
big free agent do you think realistically could land with the Blue Jays? And the
Okay.
answer I landed on, I'm honestly not even a fan of. But I do think it's probably the most realistic of the big free agents out there. And it's Alex Bregman. Now, the
Okay.
reason that I think that Alex Bregman is the most likely candidate to wind up with the Blue Jays out of all the big free agents is if you go back and you look at what the Blue Jays did to try and keep Matt Chapman, which was offer some pretty darn big money, right? I mean, the
Hmm.
rumors came out that he was offered 5 years, 125 million, and that he turned it down. Now, he did wind up, obviously, in the end, it worked out for old Matty Chapman. He resurrected his career in San Francisco, wound up getting uh, extended mid-season and signing a big
Hmm.
extension that wound up topping what the Blue Jays had offered. But it does show that the Blue Jays were willing to give a 30-year-old third baseman with some high-end defensive prowess and an above average bat, some mega money at the hot corner.
Hmm.
I do worry that Alex Bregman could wind up being in the fold. I think that this front office could see him as a guy to tip the scales, put them over the top. I would love to be proved wrong. You know, if they do bring in Bregman and he's a superstar and defies age. And
Hmm.
I do worry that they sign him to a Springer like deal and we get Springer like
Yeah.
production. I So that's my guess. Again, it's a fun little exercise to play. I don't necessarily think that they're super hot or cold on Alex Bregman. I do worry that he's on the wrong side of 30. I do worry that the Houston Astro cheating scandal still hangs over his head.
Hmm.
It's one thing to take the booze as a team, and I'm not saying that this is why Springer hasn't been the same, and I but it would suck to everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, your name is called and you're booed by everyone, which is what George
Yeah.
Springer has gone through with the Toronto Blue Jays. And when you're Alex Bregman, yeah, the same thing happens, but it's more like a team booing. Boo, the
Yeah.
Astros. The whole
Yeah.
thing is tainted, right?
Hmm.
What about you, buddy?
Yeah.
Dream and most realistic.
I got well, Dream is yeah, Juan
Yeah.
Soto as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
Um, I have four realistic, I think, guys we could bring in. Um, First one, probably the top of my list that I would top of my list, I think, in terms of quality of player, but would result in a big change of direction would be Willie Adames.
Yeah.
I think if the Blue Jays have had their internal discussions with Bichette and he's just not coming back, or we've offered him whatever our best offer is, and it's like, hey, like, this is it, man. Like, we'll give you X amount of years for X amount of dollars. This is it. What do you like? And he's like, no, I want more, or I want longer, or I just want to change the scenery, right? Um, then I think Willie Adames should be probably our number one target this offseason is
I like
replacing
that.
Bo Bichette
Yeah.
at shortstop. Um, so that um, Anthony Rizzo is a guy I'd be okay with the Blue Jays getting if we could I mean, he's a bit older, right? But again, this would be he's a lefty bat, 35 years old. If we can get him for a reasonable price, like I don't know if he would DH for us or just be a pinch hitter for us, or if he would be our full-time first baseman and Vladdy moves to third. I don't know. But I am a Rizzo guy. I hated him on the Yankees, liked him with the Cubs. I'm a Rizzo guy. I don't think he is he's going to be like an $8 to $12 million guy.
Yeah.
So I think that fits in our budget of like, when we were courting like the Jacques Petersons and whatever, like in the
He's this
past,
year's
like
Justin Turner.
right. Like, no, I think he's better than Justin Turner. Like, I
Okay.
think, anyways, but that's just whatever. Um, this third one I really don't like, but feels like something we might do is Gleyber Torres.
Yeah.
Second base and shortstop, obviously, was with the Yankees. He'll be 28 years old. I don't know. Again, this is kind of in the like maybe
One thing
Bo's
I will
gone and
say,
we missed out on Adames, but I don't like Glaber as our middle infielder. But
my problem with Glaber is his defense because he was so bad at shortstop that the Yankees moved him to second just to watch him become the worst defensive second baseman in the American League. So it's
yeah, well, the
at that
defense in the
point, I'm just
Yankees
like,
is
fuck, just stick Horowitz there. Like if that's what we're going to do and just
sure.
completely take a bath defensively,
Yeah,
Horowitz is a lot cheaper than Glaber Torres will be.
that's true. That's true. My last option, who I would like to see us go get, will not break the bank. Finish the season with a 188 batting average, 300 slugging, good for an OPS plus of 75. Daniel Jansen,
Ah,
bring him back. Why
bring
not?
him back. Boy, he
So,
did not finish the season all that strong, eh?
yeah, 30 games with the Red Sox, um, 3 home runs. Yeah, not the best, but I'd bring him back for sure. I would
Yeah.
not lose any sleep over any of that, and I think the
That would be
list of
interesting.
catchers on free agency right now: Kyle Higashioka, 35, 2.9 WAR. I don't even want to read the WARs out on this MLB.com because it's all their WARs are like inflated. It's weird. Like they have fucking, excuse my language, Juan Soto's WAR as being like 14.5. Like all the WARs are weird.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
not reliable. But anyways, Kyle Higashioka, Travis d'Arnaud, Danny Jansen, Gary Sanchez, Yasmani Grandal, Austin. Like it's not the deepest catcher class, I guess, but like catcher's just never that good.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think he would come back, right?
You would hope.
I don't know.
You would hope.
I don't know. I miss Danny. Bring him back.
Go on to
He
Patreon.
he's a better option than anybody else we had after Kirk, right?
Yeah, I would say that for
Okay.
sure. For sure. And
Okay.
Danny's what, 29? He's got gas in the tank
Yeah, he'll
here.
be 30 next year, so yeah.
And the fact he's finally wearing protective equipment
Glasses.
on his arms and hands is a big deal. Okay, go on to Patreon. This is from Philip. This is a little lengthy. Apologies, folks. Philip goes, I have said openly on other forums that my top two podcasts for the Blue Jays are number one, Blair and Barker, number two, The Walk Off. So, first of all, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I mean, Blair and Barker is the best of the best. So, good company there. So interesting to listen to and so informative. Adam and Scott, you guys are fantastic. Joel, I have a secret
Thank you.
admiration for you because of your support of Teoscar Hernandez. I remember you speaking on this matter prior to 2023. Oh my God, Joel spoke on this matter since it fucking happened.
I
It's been so
know.
annoying, but I love him.
Mhm.
uh, He goes, I was in full support of your dislike of that trade. I have openly mentioned your name on other forums online as being my brother when it comes to the Teoscar scenario. I'll be honest, however, as much as I really like Hernandez, I don't feel as though the front office ever appreciated him, and I don't want to see him return to Toronto anymore. I want to see him with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hopefully he gets that 100 million contract he deserves and they form a dynasty that includes him. My question is, what the hell are the Blue Jays going to do right now? What should they do right now? How do we change this thing around? I remember in the 2000s very well, Adam, and you and I, we just talked about this, the dark days, with
Hmm.
opening day attendance of 30,000 only followed by 11,000 the next day. I think this franchise is on thin ice. It only took 7 to 8 years to completely lose fan interest after Carter's walk-off World Series home run. How much longer do we have right now until fans start not giving a shit anymore? Not long, right, buddy? Like, if this team sucks, we should start seeing a pretty drastic turn down in attendance and just attention in general to this team by what, May? They come out of the gate cold. Grounds crew, feel free to chime in here. What do you think? Like, what is the timeline here of this team not being good before fan interest wavers?
Um, I would say as long as Bo and Vlad are on the team, there is a buffer there. Having superstars, even if the record isn't good, people will still believe. People will still go. But if we lose Bo and we lose Vlad, or even if we only retain one of them, either one, and the record's not good, yeah, we're probably talking months, not years.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we touched on it off the top, Adam. There's not a lot of trust in this front office from the fan base, and nor should there be. The trust has been eroded over the years. They promised one thing and have delivered another. And honestly, every stop on this roadmap that they had drawn out in 2017 pretty much played to what they said. They said it's going to be a dark couple of years, 2018, 2019. We're
mhm,
hoping to actually contend in 2021. Performance, like how that season
mhm.
ended or not,
Yeah,
2021
yeah.
was a pretty great year. And a year where I think had the Blue Jays been able to just get that one extra win, put up 92 wins on the season instead of 91, they may have been very formidable in the playoffs.
Hmm.
Good pitching staff, outstanding offense, bullpen a little to be desired. But they did kind of get it together by the end of that year. That was the
Hmm.
Tyler Chatwood, Rafael Dolis bullpen, for those of you forgetting.
Right.
After 2021, things went sideways, man. 2022 was not so bad, but I was frustrated and upset that they didn't continue to build on that offense. I mean, who would have known that Marcus Simeon should have been the old man that we went in all in on instead of George Springer? Hindsight's 2020. I don't blame the front office for that.
Hmm.
Although, man, Marcus Simeon sure would solve a lot of problems in this lineup right now.
Hmm.
You had the crazy outfield collision between Bo and Springer and that Mariners collapse. A game two of the wild card that saw the offense finally come together, put up 8 runs, have an 8-run lead. Teoscar Hernandez out there giving curtain calls after 2 home runs just to watch them completely blow that.
Hmm.
And then we had the massive overcorrection of pitching and defense. And now where are we at? Like we're just a bunch of fans that just want to believe in a team and just have no faith that this front office will do the right thing.
Yeah, it's might be lonely times as a Blue Jays fan for a while.
Sure hope that come July, buddy, we're doing a big apology tour for this front office. Damn, all these podcasts that have just shit all over them. It would be so refreshing to be like, you know what? Yeah, it took them a little while to get there, but they actually built a pretty good team. What I would give for that. You know, like it bothers me so much, man, that like Mark Shapiro is kind of in charge of how much happiness I have towards the team. You know, like I even, I, there's a lot of people out there that have the feeling of, well, just boycott them. But also, it
Hmm.
pisses me off that it's on me to fucking diminish the amount of baseball that I love and watch because of
Hmm.
Mark Shapiro. Like, it just,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
moving on. Sticking with
Yeah.
Patreon. Michael Myers wrote in, and this was concerning our Soto talk and what he might get.
Hmm.
Soto's contract will start with a 5, is my prediction. He does not have appeal to advertisers and the advertisement market like Shohei does, which is probably true. Well, I not even probably. You can take probably out of that statement. That is true. And the market will decide, but yeah, you know what? If Juan Soto gets $500 million, I mean, sure, Scott Boras and him are going to call it a failure, but not too shabby. Mish agrees with this. Her comment was, I think 700 for anyone is vulgar. 500 is still more than most and gives you bragging rights.
Um,
I like that $700 million is where Mish draws the line. Love you,
yeah.
Mish. She's just like 500, 500 million, half a billion. You know what? We can all deal with that. But 700 gross. Get out of here.
Um, as far as like the Shohei comparison of like he doesn't have the same advertising appeal and whatever. Like I get the Japan dollars and the tourism of it all and whatever. That's true. Shohei had all of that going for him. Um, what Juan Soto has going for him though is the biggest market teams in baseball all feel so much closer than they did last year, right? I'm looking at the playoff bracket from 2023. Texas beat the Diamondbacks in the World Series. Yankees not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um, Dodgers out in the second round. Mets didn't make the playoffs. Like, I just, that is what Juan Soto has going for him, in my opinion, to get him well past the 500 mark,
Mm-hmm.
is with the Yankees losing in the World Series and how well he performed personally in the playoffs for the Yankees. Like, if the Yankees had missed the playoffs again, it would have been easier for them to be like, all right, well, if we can get Juan back, cool. If not, oh well. But with how Aaron Judge did in the playoffs, again, not good.
Mm-hmm.
And how Juan Soto did, like, they just need Juan Soto so badly if they want to get back there again. And now having that sniff of it, the way they did this year, adds dollars to his contract.
I think you're right.
Um,
I think you are correct. And I think Juan Soto
the
is going to wind up with a contract that starts with a 6, personally.
Yeah, I think 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I think probably 6, but also like 7 wouldn't shock me.
seven
Um,
hundred
8
million
would
and
shock
one
me.
dollar and $1.
Sure, it would be hilarious. That'd be funny. I'd like it. Eight would shock me, but also like isn't off the table for me. Like if there is a crazy, I didn't see Shohei's contract being structured the way it was.
Hmm.
That shocked me,
Hmm.
right? So that's where I'm like 800 is possible. Just from the like creative accounting approach of it all, where it's like a $500 million deal, but we're gonna give you an extra 300 over the next 70 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where I could see it being like that high. 700, there's probably something cool in the contract too, but 600 feels very real. Again, the Mets being as close as they were, like Mets were closer to winning the World Series than the Yankees were.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
took the Dodgers to six.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm a New York fan, I mean, the Yankees went to the World Series. Like, if my best friend's a Yankees fan and I'm a Mets fan, I probably have bragging rights over my Yankees buddy, right? They'd be like, well, you guys
Yeah.
lost in five. We put up a good run for our money. Like,
We didn't get to go through the AL Central either.
right. Yeah. So like the Mets, plus just like the Cohen of it all,
Yeah.
of like, man, would it feel good to take fucking Juan Soto away from the Yankees?
Hmm.
Like that itself m might be worth $100 million to Steve Cohen.
And what's even crazier, dude, is that with this deferred contract the Dodgers have with Shohei,
They
they
have room
have
for
money
him.
to spend right
That's
now.
the
It's
thing, man.
wild.
That's the thing. So that's where it's like all bets are off in terms of like how much money is he going to get. I think honestly, I'd be more shocked by 500 than I would be by 700.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat too.
Like if,
Sticking
if
with
someone gets
Soto.
him for 500 million, I can be like, holy shit, you guys got a fucking steal.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to feel.
Sticking with Juan Soto talk, Wyatt chimes in. He goes, the only thing with Soto is you can't sign one guy. Handcuff yourself to not being able to put a team around him and expect a championship. The Dodgers needed 4 huge contracts to win a World Series. So, no, I don't want Soto on the Jays if we can't do anything else around him. And I will say Wyatt is 100% true or 100% correct in this assessment. I
Hmm.
will say my pushback on this comment is more so towards Rogers Communication, who, if they are going to buck up that kind of money for that kind of player, a
Hmm.
generational talent that you're making the face of your franchise, you're
That's
literally
not where the
going to be,
checkbook ends, is what you're
it's
saying.
going to be Juan Blue Jays Soto for the rest of his life, right? He is
Hmm.
going to be the poster
Hmm.
boy for
Yeah.
baseball in Canada for over a decade. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, it would be absolutely asinine to not
Put a
budget
team
to
around
have a
him.
team around him.
Hmm.
I don't think the Jays are getting Soto, but if they do, I wouldn't worry about how much money they're spending. I think that that's a budget separate from the rest of the budget and somewhere in that Shohei unicorn contract idea. We'll see where it goes. There's obviously money to be made from advertisers from Juan Soto. I'm sure it's not even a sliver of what you can get from Otani, but it's still going to be significant.
Well, the Sportsnet NHL exclusive deal ends after the 2026 season, the 2025-2026 season. So there's this year left on it. I think one more season of hockey left. That was for $5.2 billion over 10 years. And by all accounts, has not been a money maker for Sportsnet.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is not proven to be a good
Deal.
deal for them. They're not happy with it. So you could do like a Juan Soto and like we're pivoting away from the NHL exclusive emphasis to like we're gonna make a push for baseball and make that a bigger deal. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna I mean you sports that I'm sure would still keep their like NHL coverage, right? But they
Of
would
course.
rework the deal with the NHL. Be like, all right, well, we'll just keep the Canadian games. We don't need to show the Panthers versus Tampa Bay exclusively on Sportsnet and Canada. Like that
Focusing
was
on the
not
monopoly they have already in place on baseball is actually
right.
not a bad idea for a pivot. So who knows?
So yeah, it's a lot of money, but Sportsnet has a lot of money. So I have another thing that I want to say too about like the business model of Sportsnet, but I'm gonna save it for maybe once this episode's done, and I'll just say it for Patreon because I know it's gonna be offensive, not offensive, controversial. Then I'm just not interested in hearing those comments in the YouTube section because I know it's gonna bring out a lot of shitty people.
Right.
So just remind me after we finish this episode, I'll ask
Sure.
me again about it. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to Mark Drabert. He says that this is about what we were talking about yesterday on MLB Mondays concerning the underage or the 19-year-old who
Right.
was stating he was
The
14
Padres. Yep.
with the Padres, who were about to sign him on the international free agent, uh, not draft. God, I keep
Circuit.
saying
Yeah,
that
yeah.
international free
Market
agent draft. It's the international free agent, yeah, for signing
process, whatever. Yeah.
process. That 19-year-old should get to keep the money. I have zero sympathy for billionaire owners that can't do a background check. Short, sweet, simple. I'm with you, Mark.
Yeah, I'm right there too.
Okay, going to YouTube. Andrew McLeod. Guys, after watching game 5 of the World Series, do you think the Yankees' defensive miscues will break Brian Cashman's brain? I wonder if this offseason the Yankees prioritize pitching and defense. I wonder if the Yankees will let their offense first right fielder go for nothing and move their high salary center fielder to right, allowing him to stay on the field more. I wonder if they will this offseason trade their best prospect plus a throw in for a defensive first outfielder who can also catch with high offensive upside. An offensive upside that will never come to fruition. Do you agree with me, or do you feel these ideas are stupid? Andrew, well done, sir. That was
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
the amount of comparisons he managed to pull out of what happened with the Blue Jays
Hilarious.
is impressive. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too. Even just like that fifth inning collapse of the Yankees
Yeah.
was like so eerily reminiscent of the Blue Jays. I mean, yeah, the Blue Jays weren't in the World Series, and it
No.
wasn't what, but it just like the like, oh, we got this feeling to like, oh, we fucking what a horrifying end to that game. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, it's
This next comment is from Slippery Tom. He says double L's in Spanish are pronounced like Y's. This, of course, from me trying my best to run through the Leadham Dominican Winter League schedule with all of the teams. It's not Australia's. I want to say the L's. It's Australia's, but I see those two L's and I can't help myself. The English moron in me just wants to let it up. But no, Slippery Tom, thank you for the correction. Appreciate it. Final mailbag question of the day. We did get a little long in the tooth here, but thanks for sticking with
sorry.
us to
So
the
when
end.
I mispronounced Luis Gill, it's an H, right?
Well,
The
no,
Yankees pitcher?
that's a single L. I think you're right with Luis.
No, but at the end of his last name, is it just he
I
instead of Gill?
Yeah,
It's
it's just
pronounced.
Gil Gill. Luis
Is it
Gill.
one L? I thought it was two.
No, I'm pretty sure it's one L. You look that up. I'm gonna go to the next question
All
here,
right,
buddy.
nobody cares about this anyways.
Final question from our good friend of the
Yeah, it's
show.
one L. Fuck.
All right.
All right.
Daltramarist. So Dolce, thanks for following along. We always appreciate you. He chimes in every single episode pretty much. He goes, Jays would get more for Bo at the 2025 trade deadline at this point due to the injury and poor 2024 season, unless Bo is pure garbage in 2025 and repeats his abysmal 2024 performance. Bo's value would greatly improve if he demonstrates 2024 was just a fluke. And if he has the excellent 2025 that we're hoping he will want to have before reaching free agency. So couldn't agree more. Very astute comment. I think that's where this front office is at on Bo. They're going to run him out. Same with Vladdy. I don't think we're going to see extensions on these two kids. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to see this front office lock up Vladdy long term this offseason. You got to remember, though, these kids are the descendants of baseball royalty. Guys who have been there, done that, know the business of Major League Baseball inside and out, have been superstars themselves. Their fathers have been through all of the rigors of a contract negotiation and hitting free agency. And it would shock me if Vladdy didn't just try and go to free agency and force the Blue Jays to do what Judge forced the Yankees to do, which was pay the open market price.
Yep.
Now, is there a world where maybe the Blue Jays can just bite the bullet and they somehow find a deal like Rafael Devers did with the Red Sox and they're both happy and you don't need to go to free agency? I don't think it's impossible. But again, this
No
goes
discount
back to
though.
this goes back to the faith in the front office, which I have so little of right now. I don't trust them and I don't have faith in them. And it makes it really hard to predict a long-term contract extension with your best player 1 year from free agency when he's 25 years old. I really do hope I'm wrong.
The thing with like Bo having more trade value at the deadline versus this offseason, like hopefully he rebounds, but if he doesn't rebound, then the value's worse. And like all this, like I agree, obviously, but like this is where I have a hard time even like second guessing a lot of the moves our front office makes. Like there's it's just really easy to evaluate all the mistakes they've made in hindsight,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Getting rid of Teoscar Hernandez and being like, wow, look how fucking good he panned out, right? And yeah, Joel looks like a fucking genius because he's like, oh, that bat and blah blah blah. But it's also like he was also like 30 and due for big money and like hadn't really done it until then. Like there was a lot of reason to believe that like it was a one and done. Marcus Semien hit 45 home runs with the Blue Jays, hasn't hit 30 since.
Mhm.
Right? Like there's just George Springer's contract is awful right now, but if he didn't collide with Bo Bichette in the outfield in that game and we had gone on and gone to a World Series and maybe won one, the George Springer contract would sure be a lot more
Oh,
manageable to eat that, being like, well, at least we got a ring out of it, right? Like the year the Blue Jays missed the playoffs by one game, like we talked about earlier, was like that was probably the best team we had and our best shot at a ring. We missed it by 15 minutes, you know? But like, I don't know. It's just with the Bo Bichette of it all, like, should we trade him now? Should we trade him at the deadline? It's going to be another piece of evidence used against Shapiro and Atkins is like, oh, these bozos should have fucking traded him in December because he had a terrible year. And look, we got nothing for him at the deadline. Like, of course we should have traded him in December. But then the opposite will also be true. If we trade him in December and then he has a great April and May, we'll be like, oh my God, we should have held on to him for the deadline. Like, we would have gotten so much more. Like, it's just the I just hate that. It makes my skin crawl to look at hindsight and be like, when it was just genuinely like a tough call and everybody knows. Yeah, do you trade him now? Do you trade him later? Like I don't know, man. Alek Manoah, well, we can't trade him now. His value's as low as it could ever be. And it's like, okay, but did you want us to trade him on the heels of finishing second in Cy Young votes? No, of course not. You fucking idiot. Like, don't claim that you had the crystal ball and was like, oh, Alec Manoah is going to implode next year. Let's trade him now while we can. Like, sure, right? Like, ugh. Sorry, that's my griping for the day.
No, I hear you. I mean, hindsight is, I mean, there's a reason the saying hindsight's 2020 exists, is that it really is
Yeah,
easy to pinpoint the mistakes and the
yeah,
errors of your way when you can look back and be like, oh, there they are. There it is. That was a problem. This did a
yeah,
humdinger on us, you know? So,
yeah.
all that said, I'd be lying if I said I had any trust in this front office, though. Like it has eroded, and
I
I
do
think
also agree with you there.
so. I don't know. I hope that they can. This is a very difficult off season. They're up against it with their budget to really improve this team and augment their areas of need. They're going to need to be very savvy on the trade market, something that I'm not sure they're able to thread the needle of doing. They're going to need to evaluate the talent that's currently on this roster. They're going to need to find teams that find value in those guys and get as much out of them as they can. They're going to need
Yeah.
to hit on a free agent.
Hmm.
And I don't mean like the yeah, Justin Turner, you could argue was all right. I don't mean like, yeah, Brandon Belt was good, but missed time. You know, like you
Hmm.
need a guy to come in here and you're like, holy shit. You need a guy to Marcus Simeon it, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't know if it's possible. But I mean, we talk about this all the time. I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan first, and if this team is winning, all is forgiven.
There you go.
All right, folks, that is Mailbag. Thank you so much for following along. I know this was a long one. Do appreciate all of your questions and interaction throughout the week. You can always reach out on Twitter, a Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Get that Patreon bump. You can join Patreon by going to patreon.com/the walk off. You get all of those extra perks that we mentioned earlier in the episode, and you can drop your comments right here on YouTube. Appreciate all of you who watch and listen every week. Take care of yourselves. We will see you next Tuesday and Monday for MLB Mondays for those of you on Patreon. Cheers.